welcome everyone for today's event that we have the pleasure to have our friend Dr. Vanessa Anseloni from the United States. And let's start with the first moments, relaxing ourselves, harmonizing ourselves as we are just finalizing the final settings here. All of us who are here, all of those who are coming along and also joining us, may we all feel welcome and embraced in this unique opportunity that is granted to all of us. And in that way, may we choose to connect with our hearts, with our minds, perceiving ourselves as loving beings as we all are, created by God with love in order for us to learn to love. And start expressing our gratitude for our Creator, who created us with love. Our gratitude for our Master Jesus, our friend, our guide. And our gratitude for our spiritual benefactors, who once more are with all of us, those who are already here, those who are coming along. And in that way that we are all embraced in brotherhood, in a fraternal way of learners, we will start our event today. Feel all welcome. And in that way, as we already announced previously, we have the pleasure to have with us today Dr. Vanessa Anseloni. She is from the United States and she is a neuroscientist and a psychologist. There would be a lot of compliments that we could carry on saying, but she's also a great worker within the field of Spiritism, nationally and also internationally. And today we have the pleasure to have her with us. Vanessa, feel welcome by all of us from this Spiritist Society, but also by all of those who are following through our live transmission channels from Facebook and also YouTube. We all welcome you. And Vanessa will be tonight talking about the theme, the Divine Providence. So as we welcome you in a warm way, we pass the word up to you, Vanessa.
Thank you so much, Evanise, and thank you, friends from the Spiritist Psychological Society. It's a joy for us to be here, and thanks to the conditions of today's world, we are closer together. It's a joy to be here, especially to talk about this theme that is so important. And Evanise, if I may, right now we all know that at this very hour, our dear Divaldo Franco is undergoing a surgery at this very hour. So we would like to ask everyone who is here now to dedicate this hour to sustain a current of loving vibrations that he receives from all of us, not only the gratitude, but the best of our feelings, so he can undergo a very smooth procedure and soon recover. Because we know that divine providence is taking care of him. We're sure of it. What is the divine providence? I think before we begin, it's very important for us to ask, what is our relationship with God? What is our relationship with God? How important is it to meditate on our relationship? Would it make any difference in our lives, how we feel about God? So here is a question for us in just a few seconds to start contemplating. Where am I? Think of a scale 0 to 10. Do you feel like you were more conscious of your relationship with God during the day, or less? Because during the pandemic, some people have become best friends with God. Other people are on the opposite side, despair and fear, doubting the existence of God. So, where are we? And God, what is God? So, you and I know, since we are here talking through a Spiritist society, that God is the supreme intelligence of the universe. What does it mean, the supreme intelligence? I remember talking to my daughter Virginia last week. We were studying the Spirit's book, and she said, Mom, what does supreme mean? Well, supreme means the best. We love to talk about, I'm the best. Well, God is the best. He is the one who really takes care of us all, and his intelligence is like top. Nobody tops his intelligence. But when we talk about intelligence, what kind of intelligence is it? So in psychology and in the sciences in general, there's a big discussion about the types of intelligences. In general, we talk about the IQ and also the EQ, the emotional intelligence. We talk about spiritual intelligence. What kind of intelligence we're talking about? An all-encompassing intelligence, which means so intelligent that it's love. Love is intelligent. Some people say love is blind. That's not true love. Love and truth go hand in hand. Love can handle the truth. And God is all about love. The supreme love, supreme intelligence. We're going to share with you a few affirmations and statements that Kardec brings to us to meditate about our relationship with God, to meditate on what we can do about it, and also the divine providence. It can make a big difference in our lives. And then later we're going to show to you a case of a man who decided to make God center stage in his life. So now, as we move forward, we can go to chapter 2 of the book Genesis by Allan Kardec. And this is one of the most fascinating chapters because it talks about a revisit on God's nature. Is it important to know who God is? Of course. But who made you? Who made me? Some people come to me as a psychologist and say, I don't believe in God. Okay, so who made you? I don't know, a force. Well, that's what we mean, force, God, whatever name it is. But we're not self-made, right? So what made us? God made us, and God is this supreme love, supreme intelligence, eternal. There's no beginning or end. Now feel it. It's more than the cognitive. It's about the feelings. It's like feel it, eternal. It's like it's timeless as well. There's no beginning, there's no end, immutable. So God is not going to change because we change. Some people think, oh, God must love me more today because now I cleaned my house, because now I'm better with my family. That's a fallacy. We may love ourselves more for doing those things, but God loves us no matter what. Does that mean we're not going to comply with God's laws? I guess that's another question, because God doesn't change as we change. He may change for us inside of our minds, but not as God. So God doesn't change. God loves us the same when he created us and today. God loves Jesus Christ as much as us because he's just, supremely just and good. He has no preference. When some people try to make us believe that they are more lovable by God because they are this and that and the other, like the Pharisees used to do at Jesus' time, it's a myth. Because God loves us all the same. There's no difference. He's just. And what is to be just? In question 875 of the Spirit spoke by Kardec, it has an explanation. When he asked, what is the definition of justice? And it says, justice is to respect people's rights. See how far we are from actually being just, from being fair, because we don't usually and fully respect people's rights. Some people like to eat broccoli, others don't, but we try to impose. Some people like certain types of movies and others like other types. And we may like or dislike them because of their likes. We're not fair, we're not just, but God is just, respecting everyone's rights, everyone's nature, and loving unconditionally. And so he's so powerful that even though we see the chaos in the world nowadays, because we're certainly, there's no doubt that the pandemic is coming for the betterment of all of us. But there is a lot of commotion going on. And it's part of this transformation. But the world before the pandemic was coming to a stall. Why? Because we put God aside. We can no longer live our lives the way we used to do, where God is just an appendix in our lives. It has to be center stage. If we look at the hierarchy of the worlds, and you can go to the spiritistmagazine.org to see a whole issue that has Mozart on the cover. And you're going to see Mozart's description about a more advanced planet, Jupiter, in our solar system. And he describes at Kardec's time, through a medium, that in Jupiter, people are so much more evolved that they, not only humans, but nature as a whole, is already in full synchronicity with God. And every human being doesn't do anything without raising their thoughts to God. Everything they do, every action is like a song to God. And that's our goal. Some people feel that by doing this, they don't have their own personality. That's a myth too. I remember somebody telling me, Vanessa, but if I believe too much in God, I won't believe in myself, in my capacity. I think there is a problem here, because one does not exclude the other. And we're going to talk about this. I'm just bringing teasers for us, because soon we're going to see how this kind of thought is a fallacy. Because God is immaterial. God does not subject himself to the transformations of our world. Our concept of God changes, but not God itself. Now, what about it? Is God all powerful to the point that I don't have my individuality and that my capacity dissolves in it all? Doesn't look like. God being unique, he also created each one of us unique. Though equal in our rights, we're all unique. There's nobody like us in this universe. We've never heard that there is somebody alike. When people talk about parallel universes and things, we say, we love to fantasize, but let's stay very close to our logics here and be rational. Even in mediumship, in the reports by several mediums, spiritists and non-spiritists, we know, it's across the board since ancient times, that we keep our personality and we are unique. There's nobody like us. And it makes sense to us because the greatness of God doesn't need to multiply many of us. Even a plant, if you see the same bunch of flowers, each one of them is different, is unique. There are no two so alike. Even twins, if you see twin children, even those who are so alike, there's always something that is different about them. If not in the physical, certain in their character, but also in the physical we'll find it. And God is infinitely perfect. So God doesn't get mad. And these are good news, I guess, because many people are so afraid of God and afraid of God's justice. When we talk about the pandemic, we often see people being afraid that, oh my gosh, now I'm going to pay. I'm going to catch the coronavirus because of misdeeds, wrongdoings. I think God is going to make me pay for what I've done. I don't think so. God doesn't punish us. God educates us. He educates us. God, above anything else, never gets mad at us. It's hard to conceive it because we're so much like that it's hard not to project that on God. But it's not God. God doesn't get disappointed on us because that's a human feeling. It's so liberating. The more we study about God, the more loved we'll feel. The more we understand God and feel the greatness of God, the easier our lives will become. And Kardec shares even more. He says that God cares for all creatures, for all the ones he created. All, no exception whatsoever. I remember once a Spiritist physician coming to us here and asking and saying, oh, Vanessa, I don't believe that God knows our social security number. And I said, I think God knew it before we even got the number. Even before we reincarnated, God already knew the number on our social security. Oh, yeah. And in lives to come. Because God is all powerful, supreme intelligence. He knows it all. We don't. And if we try to conceive how he knows, it's impossible. Because we can't grasp that greatness. It's as if a computer is trying to understand me as a human. No matter how great this computer is, this computer will never figure me out because it's beyond its capacity. So it can grasp my voice and bring the caption here. It can be used by me, but it cannot figure me out. The same happens between God and us. But one thing is for sure, if God is all powerful, if God is so supreme in intelligence, we conclude he created us for a purpose. He cares about us. He wouldn't create us and say, whatever, forsake us. Chapter 92 of the book, Our Daily Bread, by Emmanuel, through Chico Xavier. God does not forsake any of us. Any of us. As Kardec says, and Emmanuel quotes in that book, if you think of a loving parent, if you think of a provident parent, if you think of a parent that would go to the moon for their child, God is above it all. And then when we hear this, many people exclaim, I can't believe it. I've never felt it before. Yes, because we're like little kids. Observe little kids and you see it's fascinating. The parents are around, working, cleaning, taking care of them, and they are just focused on their little play, on their little thing. When they turn around, the parents have cooked and cleaned and worked, like in the pandemic, done everything, and the children were there playing without realizing the greatness of the parents, which is unbelievable. It's just the same for us. It's exactly the same for us. We are not aware of this for the simple reason that we don't spend time contemplating God. So that's something to do before the opening of everything on this pandemic. Retreat with God. Some people say, I'm home alone. No, you're not home alone. You're home with God. But you need time to cherish this greatness. Because if God is caring for you more than any good parent would do, imagine what God is doing and you're not perceiving. And Kardec compliments, God is everywhere, sees everything, and presides over everything. So before anything that is happening nowadays, God knows. And God is taking care. God is taking care of everyone, including animals, plants, everything. Some people nowadays, because of the pandemic, they decided to have a pet because they are there with their families, they are feeling more lonely, or they want to, expand the circle of joy. But they forget that these pets are children of God as well, and that we're co-responsible for what we do with them. So that's another level of responsibility for us when we decide to care for God's creatures, whether a human being as a child of ours or a pet, even if we have a plant at home, that's a child of God. And God is taking care of their life. And we're now co-responsible for what's happening to their life. So when people tell me that they forget to water the plants, don't forget, that plant is a child of God. You better water the plant and put a lot of love on that plant as well. Because God cares about even the very smallest things, as Kardec says. Everything. Even the bug. Even the coronavirus. Yes. We may have co-created, but it comes from nature. And we co-created with God. Now we need to fix it up. How? Good thoughts, good feelings, good words, good actions. The whole nature is immersed in God's divine thought, divine fluid. If we go to another book named Mechanisms of Mediumship by André Luiz through Chico Xavier and Paulo Vieira, they explain to us that our thought is immersed in the thought of God as fish in water, like the picture here. That's why we suffer when we don't swim harmoniously in the waters of the Creator. So, swimming harmoniously, at peace, in simplicity, is the key for us, in humility. Some people don't like this concept because we're too proud of ourselves. But pride hinders us from progressing more than anything else. Our Master Jesus Christ, is the master of all masters, showed to us how great you can be and yet be fully subjected to serving God and under fulfilling the will of God. It's a combination that we need to practice. Feeling unique and yet serving the will of God. Cooperating with God, as in chapter 3 of the book Thought on Life by Emmanuel through Chico Xavier. God is inviting us to be co-pilots in life. And we'll quote another book that is so important when we talk about this co-creative ability, Evolution into Worlds, chapter 1. Andre Luiz explains to us that we, at this level that we are co-creators at minor level. What does that mean? It means that right now, we need to master mind over matter. So it is about the body. No wonder in the Gospel according to Spiritism, we have that chapter that talks about take care of body and spirit. Because it is part of us at this evolutionary step that we learn how to master this matter here, the trillions of cells that are connected to us, our perispirit, the spiritual body, the physical body, and learn how to mold health and harmony here. Some people are bothered, like, I don't want to work out. I don't want to cook healthy. I don't want to spend time with these things and cleaning and organizing things at home. My mind is already elsewhere. Well, okay, come here, ground yourself. Shh. You are incarnated. The first thing we need to worry about when we're incarnated, the body. Jesus never got sick because he knew fully well how to manage not only his mind, but everything that was connected to it, including his body. We are far from it, but that's our goal. In a book that is not even a Spiritist book, but goes hand in hand with Spiritism, it's named Thoughts Are Things by Prentice Mulford, an American man, precursor of these ideas way before spiritualism came to the United States. He talks about how important it is for us to domesticate our physical body cells with our thoughts, with the power of our thoughts, learning to administrate our feelings, our thoughts, so we can manage our physical body. Psychosomatics, so beautiful. So it is one of the roles of this reincarnation of ours, is to learn who we are and how to manage our potentialities in collaboration with the physical body. So next time we get sick, instead of shooing away the disease, learn from it and say, okay, what are the kind of thought patterns and feelings that I can observe and adjust so I don't see that outcome anymore? Because those illnesses are living lessons for us. They are teaching us something about our emotional thinking patterns. Sometimes patterns we have created for many reincarnations. Many reincarnations. it's part of our life. So it's important, and this is a parenthesis for us. Mentor Joseph always likes us to think about the children and giving support to the parents. And he says, let us give tips and hints. And here's one. One of the things we need to teach our children is that they need to take care of their body. Our bodies are true sacred sculptures of God. What we're doing in our society, we're trashing our bodies with improper food, with less elevated behaviors of all sorts. So now Spiritism comes to help parents say, the number one thing, not only respect your child's body, but teach your child to respect and care for their body, what they eat, they exercise, what they feel, and the impact. When you see a child who is misbehaving and have a tantrum, you can already foresee the adult if we don't educate the child. And the consequences of those emotional mishaps. So it's good to tell the child, look, when we feel this angry, I understand you're feeling angry, but let us work on this because this anger damages your liver. So be careful because what you're feeling is bathing your physical body in lots of molecules, because what you feel triggers molecules in your body, and then either you're going to be healthy or unhealthy. Fear and lots of disorders that happen because of fear. So we can start coaching our children as well to that type of awareness, so when they become adults, they suffer less. They have greater quality of life. Lots of illnesses that we see in the world is because we are in disharmony. That's why it says disease, because we are not in the flow of the ease of life, which is God. So to be in one, it's the conquest of every reincarnation, to be in this divine fluid in harmony. Selfishness and pride is the opposite of it, creating diseases of all sorts. Kardec adds the statement that we're constantly in the presence of the divinity. Right now, the storm of the pandemic, where is God? People suffering, where is God? Actually, we wish everybody were asking this question, because many people are not. Some people are protesting that they don't want to use masks. Others, they don't believe even that the pandemic is real or the coronavirus exists. I know people who are like this, and we feel sorry for them, that there isn't enough evidence for them to understand what's going on. Blindness of the spirit is real. And if we don't watch out, that blindness is going to come to the physical body. As we see in history, manifesting in the physical body because we don't want to see the obvious. Many people are still bumping heads without searching for that constant presence of God. We would like to share a minor personal story. At the beginning of the pandemic here in the US, when we first closed it up, at least our child's school, March 6th, the week after, I had to go to the emergency room because of a minor thing, but I had to go in the middle of the night. A friend took me there. And I was afraid, of course. I was like, oh my gosh, what if? But then with this friend in the car, because my husband was with my daughter, she was sleeping, I was thinking, I'm going to pray. I started praying for God. And then, of course, the protecting spirits, they answered. Mentor Joseph came along and said, Vanessa, what are you afraid of? And I said, well, I don't want to say it out loud because what if I attract? And then he laughed. Of course, it's not true. We don't attract by saying it. And then he said, Vanessa, can we ask you a favor? When you go there, can you pray for everybody who's there? Forget about you because we're taking care of you. But can you pray for the ones who don't know the things that you know? Forgot about God. Can you be there meanwhile and just pray? And I said, but I'm feeling pain. And then he said, I know, but we're taking care of it. Pray for the others. I then was already in. It was very quick. I got in. Nobody was there. People were very careful. I could see the fear in the eyes of the physicians and everybody because it was new to them, the whole scenario. No cases of coronavirus yet there, but when I entered, I saw them and I was alone in this room waiting. I put the Ave Maria, was praying. And then I started praying. The pain went away. And then I started listening. The next door, there was a girl, was a teenager, who attempted suicide. Mentor Joseph said, you see, please keep praying for her family, for everybody, for the doctors who are here. And I said, okay, I'll do it. Praying. I'm sure God is here in this hospital as anywhere else. Because sometimes we're home and we feel afraid of going somewhere else because we feel like God is here but not there. The question is, where is God not? Where is he not? He's everywhere with everyone. Everyone's a child of God. So it changes our lives. Fear dissolves. And I remember when I was there, I started feeling better. They came along. They gave me medication. I left. My friend helped me. Came home. Everything got better. And I was like, wow, what an experience to prove to us that not only God is everywhere, but how God counts on us, even in our mishaps and pains, to reach out to others who are in worse conditions. So wherever we are, working, sick, at home, wherever, we are being asked to be in this constant presence of God with consciousness. Because our thought is in constant contact with God's thought. Constant. And that defines the quality of our lives. So pause. What are the kinds of thoughts do we usually have? Because that's going to define the quality of our lives. Often, we think our lives are not good because of the people in our lives. Not true. Because if it were so, God wouldn't be just. The quality of our lives depend on the quality of our thoughts. Kardec, in the Spirit's book, when talking about freedom, the law of freedom in its third part, asks, when are we absolutely free? And the answer, in our thought. But in thinking, we connect. And that's where we may either feel freer or imprison ourselves in our connections. So, how is your coaching regarding your thought process? Are you attentive? Should we do a log to verify? Maybe. Because there are people who say, I pray, Vanessa, a lot, and yet my life is the way it is. Okay. What do you do after you finish praying? You keep thinking, right? I'm not good enough. My neighbor's life is better than mine. My relatives have a better life than me. My mother said this when I was little. My father said, and then I am limiting myself throughout the day. So I need to put myself on a different coaching program, or at least put ourselves into a coaching program of the mind, where we're going to harmonize ourselves with the thought of God. That's why chapter 10 of the book Thought and Life by Emmanuel, he says, if we want to be free, get rid of the shackles of evil, the past we've created, he gives us a recipe. Seek the good. Seek the good, meaning make an effort to find what is good in this scenario. 2, feel the good. It's not enough to say, oh yeah, I know the pandemic comes for the better, but I don't like it. No, feel it. Oh yeah, I'm feeling it. It's so good because finally we're connected here. I'm so happy that this pandemic brought us together. It was always my dream to unite with you guys at the Spiritist Psychological Society with Divinity, and finally it came. I can feel it and visualize it, so much so that it manifests here today. And mold with all the resources we have at hand. Molding means work on it, labor. It's about effort, repetition. It's like when you're making bread. And people who make bread say the more you do this, the better the bread, the softer. So, mold the good. We're going to see a case in which a man does this, seeks the good, feels the good, visualize the good, mold the good with all the resources at hand. And that's our true synchronicity with God, feeling the providence of God every time, every day, because God reads the deepest folds of our mind. To judge us? No. But God is a caring Father. If you are a father, mother, and you care about your children, now imagine God. Your child thinks, I'm thirsty. You already have a glass of water, right? When they're little. Imagine God. It's unimaginable, but we can feel it. God knows to provide, to care. He's constantly, Kardec's words, constantly at our side. Constantly. There's no place where God is not, but we're full of prejudices. That's a sure thing. If you go read the book 2,000 years ago by Emmanuel through Chico Xavier, we're going to see that we're still very much like the people at ancient Rome. Yeah, we are. Back then, people thought that those who were sick were cursed by the gods. Nowadays, the coronavirus is around, and people think, oh, if I got sick, I'm cursed. No, you're not punished by God. You're not cursed. It's cleansing time. People do this cleansing in different ways. Some through the coronavirus illness, and others in different ways. The predisposition to illnesses is explained in chapter 19, part 2 of the book Evolution in Two Worlds by Andrea Lewis, talking to us about how we predispose ourselves to illnesses. It's all to do with our dutifulness. If we make a grave mistake, we're going to attract not by the punishment of God, by our own conscience. The laws of God make it in such a way that we expunge that disharmony. But God is constantly at our side, constantly. Our thoughts resound within God. Now we understand why we need to think more beautifully. Because if you could paint your thoughts, how would it look like? And this is a parenthesis here. To work on our emotions, arts are the pathway. Some people ask, how do I work on my emotions? Take some color pencils, crayons, markers. Think of your mental field and draw whatever you feel like. Observe it, put a date. In a month, do it again. In another month or in a year. And keep it for your records. That's self-discovery. No judgment, but observe how you may be changing yourself and portraying different things in those pictures. There's no right or wrong, but it's about self-knowledge. What do we keep in our minds? God is with us. Are we cooperating with God in beautiful thoughts, beautiful feelings, beautiful words, beautiful actions? What do? We need to educate ourselves. There is this analogy that Kardec brings to us in which they explain this connection between God and us, saying that a limb moves and the spirit senses, we think, and God knows about it. There's nothing that God knows not. Before I tell you the case, here is a quote that fits precisely what's happening in today's world, the pandemic, and God's care for us. So caring that it's minute in its planning, in its loving care for us. Emmanuel, in a book that is being translated by Shane Martin and studied at Kardec Radio every Tuesday at 8 a.m., it says, in all the trials that you experience in your days, consider the quote of blessings that surround you. Lean on faith and patience, and you recognize the divine providence acting with you and through you, sustaining you in the problems that mark your path to give you solution to them. And if we don't perceive it, it's because we're not paying attention enough to God's help. Giving an example of a man who knew it all, besides Jesus, about divine providence and could feel it. And you're going to find this example. I'll show you just the pictures. This is from Projeto Imagem from Brazil, portraying some scenes of the book Paul and Stephen. And here's for us. Usually when we read the book Paul and Stephen, we focus on Paul, the apostle. We forget about the other part, Stephen. Stephen was the one that really triggered it all, that really helped on the behind the scenes. There wouldn't be Paul, as Emmanuel says, without Stephen. So who is Stephen? Stephen is the man of the future. Of course, Jesus is a role model, but he sent a team to show to us it's possible. And Stephen, the first martyr of Christianity, comes to us to show to us that if we want to succeed in life, we must put God center stage in our lives. And Stephen did just that. At a time in which the Romans were unfair, cruel, and there were a lot of social inequalities, political corruption, much more than nowadays. We're going to see Stephen's father, Joshadeb, as you can see in the picture, this old man, being beaten up by the Roman guards out of nothing, coming home, feeling upset, encountering Stephen and I say Stephen as his second name, his first name was Jeziel. He changed to Stephen later when he became a Christian. And Abigail, his sister. The father Joshadeb came home anguished, angered, and Stephen said, Father, let us read the scriptures first. Mom always told us that everything is under God's designs. And the father said, tomorrow I am going to talk to the question, to request justice. I want our land back, and they have to be fair with us. And Stephen, wise as he was, totally faithful to God, he said, Father, don't you understand the nature of those people? It's useless. Let's see the word of God first. They open Proverbs, and it says that the father who loves the child disciplines the child. Stephen understood that God was educating the family. He accepted it. Abigail as well. But Joshadeb, the father, did not. Joshadeb instead pushed away and said, I accept the scripture, but I will talk to the question tomorrow. And so he did. The next day he came to talk to Licinius Minucius and request that they return his land that were confiscated unfairly. Licinius Minucius, out of his cruelty, looks at Joshadeb and says, Joshadeb, you have 3 days to turn in your home and go somewhere else. The cruelty of the times was immense. Joshadeb leaves that encounter indignated, infuriated, asking for revenge. He forgot about all the knowledge he had of the scriptures, and he put fire in the neighboring lands, which were of Licinius Minucius. When he came home, he found that his very son, Stephen, was there without noticing that the father was the one that put fire. He was the one helping to calm the fires in the neighboring lands. But the beauty of the dialogue here is not what about Stephen did, but his loving care for the father. He never got mad with his father. He understood his anguishes. He respected his father and said, Father, why did you despair? Did you forget, Father, that God provides to us? And we could live here, and in 3 days we would find some other land for us and begin anew, and that would work for us. God provides to all of us. And he says more. What do you think, Father, if we love God the way we do, and God provided for our previous generations, our ancestors, why would God forsake us now? Where's our faith? Stephen had so much faith in God's providence, that when they were imprisoned all together, he didn't get upset or desperate or enraged. In a beautiful dialogue with the sister while in prison, the sister asks her brother, "Are you upset with our father?" And he said, "No." And you know, Abigail kindly also says, "If Mom were here, he wouldn't have done it. We're not capable of helping him out." They go to the martyrdom, both father and brother. The cruelty of the times, so present. The father dies. Stephen is enslaved, sent as a slave to a special shipping expedition. But he was a non-rebellious slave. He always talked to his colleagues, the other slaves, reminding them that God wants more from them. There is a reason why they're there. They shouldn't be rebellious. And he was so right that God had a plan. And one day, a Roman patrician got sick, and he was the one who was invited to take care of that Roman patrician, who had a contagious disease. They were having the pandemic, a certain time of epidemic there. Of course, he got sick himself. And after getting sick, and you can read the book, I won't give all the details, but from now on we see Stephen, who was right there in Corinth, being enslaved to Jerusalem and encountering Peter's room. You can read the book and find out the details how he ended up there. From that moment on, Stephen begins the second chapter of his life. By believing in God completely, by understanding that God always wants something from us better than we imagine, trusting in God and his providence, Stephen becomes a reference in the Christian community, to the point that he attracts the attention of the so-called doctor of the law, Saul of Tarsus. From there on, the history of our world changed. And you can read more about it in the book Fallen Stephen. Stephen exemplifies for us how our lives can be fully transformed when we trust this divine providence. He was able to seek the good in every occasion, to feel it, even in prison, even in slavery, and visualize that good to the point that when he's stoned to death in front of his sister, unexpected, almost dying, he's able to look at his persecutor, Saul of Tarsus, and says, "I can see how Saul of Tarsus will be a great disseminator of Jesus' teachings." He could visualize the good in the oddest times and mold at every occasion that came to his life. In Stephen, we're going to find the blessed of the meek, those who are meek and peacemakers, which is the new pattern of humanity in the decades to come. one in which, without full trust in God and God's providence, we cannot achieve. We're going to stop here if there are any questions or any comments, Evanese.
There are no questions, although I asked people to bring them, but I do have a question, Vanessa.
Sure.
Why are we, as humanity, still so weak in trusting God? Therefore, we suffer a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's because of this childish feeling in us. When I see children, little kids, we can certainly see the self-centeredness in which they are not able to perceive what's around. So that's why we need to be reminded often, generations after generations, successive waves of prophets, of thinkers, of light workers coming to tell us that without focusing on God, we won't succeed, because if we keep focusing on ourselves alone, we're not going to be able to perceive the greatness of life. So I think it's more about the evolutionary level that we are than anything else, right?
When you mentioned previously in relation to the COVID on Earth currently, and some people may even feel anger towards God in relation to what is happening. What do we need to learn as immortal beings as we are in case we're having this emotional response?
Right now, you mean the pandemic?
Right now, yes.
We truly observe that people need to resume, and I say resume because we're not disconnected from God. As Emmanuel says in the book of Consolador, not yet translated, he says, when somebody asked about people who say they don't believe in God, and he says, truly, there are no people who actually don't believe in God. It's more like a provocation, a statement, than a true belief that they don't believe in God.
So it is a resistance.
It's a resistance.
Based on what?
They say either because, he says, either because of previous life's traumas,
Okay.
or because they themselves are resisting to the call of selflessness, because once you open up, you become less selfish, less self-centered. And some people are afraid of being selfless because they think they're going to lose something. It's like when people say, but if I give the things and I donate, what happens when I need them? I'm not going to have them. Well, in that case, you're not going to move from where you are if you're afraid, if you justify everything out of fear. But out of fear, out of insecurity, people tend to actually close themselves up because they are thinking they are going to lose themselves. As a friend of mine said, if I think too much of God, who am I? What about my capacities? I can't allow God to do everything. I have to do things on my own. But then I said, who said that when you're thinking of God, you're not making an effort to fulfill your share? It's on the contrary. The more you think of God, the more strength you have to do the things on your own.
So would that be then the ego's resistances that would impede that fluidity or that openness or that letting go? It's almost like this part is holding on to based on the, let's say, illusion or untruthful belief systems that we developed throughout time. Would that be right?
Yes, and Evanese, it's interesting because when I see, we don't want to be simplistic here. At some point, we have so many associations in our mental network that when we make decisions like this to bring God center stage, it's so transformative that some connections of ours don't want us to be that free and so liberated either. So many people whom I see that claim, that it's better to stay skeptic or atheistic, it's more because of these other minds that bank on that imprisonment, because you're not fully free. You're still in that cocoon that you think you're so empowered. As you said, it's an illusion, but an illusion that probably is not even created by themselves, by the other minds that are associated with them.
In that way, I am responsible to allow this association to happen. That's
Yeah,
that I would be that person. Then would I be responsible to allow this association to happen?
of course.
And why would that be? If we bring the power within, is that because I may also, I don't know, don't feel yet secure to move on because of what you just said, perhaps safe, insecure, that people may think, or what would it be to be out of the comfort zone?
Mm-hmm. In chapter 8, and I'm giving references for people as opportunities to study later. In the book Thought and Life, chapter 8, it talks about associations. And it says, it's the law of life. It's the law of the mental field, as André Luiz says in the book Mechanisms of Mediumship. 2 books that are good references for us. The law of the mental field is like gravity. You think, you connect. You feel, you connect. We're responsible, yes, but once we connect, we're going to feel what we have emitted.
Mm-hmm.
And that's complicated because once you do so, you sow, you're going to reap.
Mm-hmm.
So some people say, oh, but then I'm not free. No, you are. But then you need to make more effort to make better connections. Connections that are liberating, other than imprisoning. For example, we want to mention this, Vanessa. Right now, during the pandemic, we're being forced to stay more at home than anything else. For those who can, great. Why? Why? Because it's an opportunity to transform our homes into temples. But what makes them feel so suffocated? Because usually our homes are dungeons of the mind. Dungeons. There are people talk about, oh, let me go to my man cave. And I'm like, that's so crazy dangerous that instead of creating a safe haven at home, you do everything you don't have the courage to do elsewhere. People who cultivate vulgar thoughts and feelings, watching porn, saying bad words, drinking, being cruel, gossiping, and then our homes become truly suffocating dungeons, prisons. No wonder people want to go away and travel, and they want to deny the pandemic because it's truly suffocating. The associations we make remain. And then our homes become true magnet for entities that are of inferior order. So now during the pandemic, it's a good thing to cleanse our minds and feelings, our habits at home. What do I watch? Elevated things. Oh, then I'm not going to watch anything. Well, then read a book or watch these programs and at Kardec Radio as well. And all of these Spiritist websites, there's so many beautiful programs everywhere. And even on Netflix, you can find good things as well, on YouTube. And select things that are more elevated. And then if people spend time on the phone, select your conversations. Because if you spend all day long talking about people's lives, we're going to pay a price for it. Because each person whom we talk about, they have a network of loved ones that are protecting them. Some spirits are elevated, others are not. And they may be upset with us. How do we know? Go to the Spiritist magazine at Kardec's time. These two ladies, sisters, living in a home, and suddenly they started experiencing these wrappings and pans and pots traveling, like flying all over the place in the kitchen. They were so afraid. They asked for help. Then Kardec evoked the spirits and they said, look, we're there to teach them a lesson because they spend the whole day gossiping about people. So during this pandemic, it's about tidying up our homes as well. You know, tidying up, cleaning, organizing physically, spiritually, emotionally. But why do we people feel desperate? Because we cultivate low order habits. Habits that are so dense that we can't put up with that density. We feel suffocated. We need to run away. Right?
How can we, Vanessa, on daily basis, to exercise or train ourselves to be more closer to God? What can we do at home? What can we do in our lives? What is possible?
Yeah.
Sometimes people may think there is something unachievable. So
Yes.
far,
I would say, Vanessa, and you may agree, that we need to practice with our children to make it easier when we become adults. Many adults have a hard time because they've never had this experience as they were children. But be familiar with God. God is family. Our family is God. So the more we cherish the feeling of our affiliation, how? Go to the Spirit's book, chapter 1, proofs of God's existence. It says there's a good practical exercise. Contemplate nature. Simple. See, if you can't go outside, by the window, stop and look at the sky and just stay there. As a scientist, I like observing a lot. So just stay there observing, because this is key for any science, observation. You just observe. Observe, like people go to the beach, right? During summertime. Observe the birds that stop by the beach. When you observe the birds, they are so funny, they are so goofy, because they are funny the way they walk, because they are beautiful when they fly, but when they walk, they are so goofy. And then when you observe, you start laughing and saying, man, I can't believe God made a creature so funny like this. And then you start connecting heart to heart with God, seeing how God created even the funniness of the world. Because we were not the ones who invented fun, who invented pleasure, who invented humor. God did. So God has a good sense of humor too, in a good way, of course. So if you see nature, it's cute when you observe the puppies. They are so clumsy when they are just born. They're trying to walk, even babies. And you see how God has a beautiful sense of humor. And you start connecting with God in ways that you've never felt before. And you start feeling closer to God. Because in nature, we have the living proof of God's existence and our connection.
I still have another question when you were referring early on in relation to the blindness of some people in relation to the coronavirus. We are here reflecting within the law of reincarnation, of the immortality of the soul. What would that blindness be down to?
Okay. Let us observe that our resistance to see life as is creates a vibratory pattern in our, it's about our vibratory pattern as a being. Our spiritual body receives that coding. And depending on the intensity, as Kardec says, on the intensity of those thoughts, feelings. Even Gabriel Delany, in a book that is not translated into English about reincarnation, he says the intensity, the frequency makes that thought pattern manifest in the physical body.
Crystallizes?
Yes. It's like he uses the word, the condensation of the molecules in the spiritual body, the perispirit, will be manifested in the physical. So that's why when we see anything manifesting in the physical, it's a blessing because it's expunging that disharmony, but it's already teaching us about the roots, the root causes of it all. Sometimes some illnesses are true expunging of these disharmonies. Others are still teaching us ways to reharmonize ourselves, learn to think in greater harmony. During the pandemic, if we keep resisting, as the good spirits say, this pandemic will go away. Sooner or later, it will. But rest assured, if we don't learn here what we need to learn now, other things will come. But this is not a threat. It's a school. The program is there. We need to learn the curriculum. If we don't learn at this hour, sometime in the near future, we'll have to face it. We can't escape. So that movement of the soul, when we try to escape, as Joana de Angelis says, the escape mechanism, in the book Existential Conflict, she talks about it extensively. When we try to escape because of our defense system, we don't want to see it. It's the ego. Then life is going to present to us other ways to educate us and say, no, you need to see this. It's important. And right now, if there's one thing we can say the pandemic is telling us, besides God, is the one word that starts with F, family. It's saying, rescue your families, please. It's urgent. SOS family, as Joana de Angelis' book, the compilation by Divaldo Franco's, the Sardanus family. Right?
It's almost like an invitation for us to start from the bottom to build a better society. Because the focus is on the family, and we know how the family project, which is a divine project, which is in our hands, how we cooperate with that depends on the society in the future.
Yes.
It's beautiful to see that. So we're coming, unfortunately, close to the end, Vanessa. It was lovely to have you with us, all of us here together. We always come to the end, and we also do some prayer. And today, as you mentioned already at the beginning of our talk, and also we did in our previous studies, today Divaldo Franco, which is well known to all of us, is going through operation. And I would like to invite you, if you would accept, to do the prayer and the vibrations for him, that we all can join you and help and pray together. Would that be okay for you?
Sure.
So I would kindly ask all of those who are with us through Facebook and YouTube, bless all of us in our homes where we are, connecting our hearts and minds, and follow Vanessa in this moment of prayer that we are finalizing this event today.
So let us all visualize a beautiful light of healing love that comes from God. And visualize that from our hearts, the sacred love of God joins forces. And we see this light traveling to Divaldo Franco's hospital and every hospital on earth, caring for everyone who is in critical condition. Helping and supporting doctors, nurses, and therapists in their mission. We are so happy, God, to be with you always, to know that we're never alone. You have always loved us. Finally, we discover that we love you. And we want to love you more than we've ever done. By visualizing all those in disbelief or in skepticism. For they must be suffering so deeply that they forgot that they need you. But we know that you never forsake us, and they will be embraced by your kindness. And we thank you especially for bringing Spiritism to us, because it frees us to talk to you directly. We no longer depend on anybody to talk to you or to feel that we're loved by you. Thank you so much for this liberation in our relationship with you, and for the proposal to discover more of us, more of you, and strengthen our relationship. We can already dream of the day we fully understand you. And more than that, we are already dreaming of the day we can be 100% compliant with your loving laws. For now, we'll keep making efforts and repeating every day the discovery of your loving laws, of your fair justice, so fair that you respect our rights, and the consequences of our choices. We thank you for your compassion and for the charity of the beyond, the loving spirit guides of the world. And especially today, we're thankful for the spirit mentors of the Spiritist Psychological Society in the United Kingdom, for allowing us to be here together in your name, reinforcing inside of our hearts the beauty of life with you. Totally reverent to you, we ask for your permission to close these moments by multiplying in the true commitment of our souls with you. And so be it.
So be it. All gratitude, Vanessa, for your presence.
Thank you.
Your presence was a moment unique and special, but we know that every moment is unique. So thank you very much for you and all of you who have been with us, joining us together. And before we go, we just go through some reminders for us as we go on with different activities. Today we did have the pleasure with Vanessa. Next Wednesday in the evening after our English study at 8 p.m. we have another live with our colleague from Brazil, Tiago Toledo. The theme is in Portuguese, Pornografia à luz do Espiritismo. And then the following Wednesday, also in the evening, which is 8 p.m. in London, in Portuguese, we have Cláudio Sinotti from Brazil, which is talking about the theme in Portuguese, Autocura, Curando o Vírus do Desamor. And then the following Wednesday, we do have the pleasure to have with us Andrea Marchaneto from United States, Miami, and she is talking about, in Portuguese, Desperta e Seja Feliz. And the following 26, I think it is, we do have from Brazil, William Jacob, and he is talking in Portuguese, and we'll be talking about the theme Doenças e Doentes, Doentes e Doenças. And then the following 29, which is a Saturday, I think, we have the presence of Dr. Larissa Chaves, and she will be talking in Portuguese, A Filosofia da Dor em Leon Diniz. And then we have on the 30th of October, again, we have Tato Savi, who has been with us previously, will be again, and now talking about the theme in Portuguese, O Sono e os Sonhos. And then afterwards, which is on the 26th of August, we have the pleasure to have with us also Jussara Cornwall from the United States, and she will be talking about, in English, mediumship education. And then on the 13th of September, we have the pleasure to have Eduardo Gibelli, and the theme in Portuguese will be a arte musical na educação do espírito. Maybe I'll also put that into a diary so that we may be together and learning from different perspectives, always learning about Spiritism, which helps us also to grow, to expand our awareness and even ourselves in this journey of more love that we all are under. So in that way, Vanessa, thank you very much from all of us, and hope in the future that we have new opportunities to gather our hearts and to join this pathway of learning and talking about God, Jesus, and the good teachings that helps us to promote health, goodness, and balance ourselves within. See you soon. Bye-bye to everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.